we will bring up our speakers one after another, and then get them seated up here, and then questions and answers, and you can chat with them. So we'll go through each speaker before we do questions, but there will be time at the end, so if there are things that you want to ask them, you will have that chance. First up is Hugh Balthrop from Sweet Magnolia Gelato. Thanks for being here.
Hello. How's everyone? Good. Good. My name is Hugh Balthrop, and I'm the founder of Sweet Magnolia Gelato Company. First of all, I would like to thank Jennifer Biggs for inviting me here and being a part of the seminar. I'm grateful and humbled to be sharing the stage with such great business giants. I really am. Sweet Magnolia was created in Clarksdale, Mississippi in 2011. Anybody familiar with the Delta? Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love it. I've been there since 2000. My wife and I, we actually met in Washington, D.C., and we moved there in 2000, and we raised a family there. And actually, that's how Sweet Magnolia started. In my kitchen, making ice cream for my kids. And that turned into making ice cream for friends and family. And I started doing research. I went to Penn State University, and I took a weekend course there, and I came back home, and I did more research, and I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. And so, coming from D.C., Washington, D.C., we always saw examples of business owners. And so, while doing my research, I came across Jenny's. Of course, you guys probably know Jenny's ice cream. And I really admired what she was doing in terms of stimulating the local economy. And so I said I thought that was brilliant. I wanted to do the same thing. So I came across another article. It was an article about Brown Family Farm out of Oxford, Mississippi. And then we started using that. I contacted those guys, and we've been using them since day one. And before, like going forward, so of course I had to do the branding and the logo and everything. So I contacted a branding company, and they said, okay, they were thrilled about the idea, and I asked them to, okay, can you come up with a name? And they said, no, you have to do that. And so in the Delta, we have a few acres, and so I was outside with my daughter one day, and it was that time of year where the magnolia plant was blooming, and it was very fragrant, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, like Sweet Magnolia Gelato Company. And so from there, I just started knocking on doors. I knocked on doors. Let's back up a little bit. So at Penn State, that's where I was introduced to this gelato machine and other machines, and I came in contact with folks who are familiar with the gelato. And so I had my first mentor. She was a gelato master, and at that point I still had a Cuisinart ice cream machine, and she told me, she's like, you're going to have to get a professional gelato machine, and out of Italy. And I said, okay, done. And so I started knocking on doors. Actually, Miss Cordelia's was my first retail customer. And after that, we got into High Point Grocery, and then that led us to getting into Whole Foods. At one point, at the peak, we were in 15 Whole Foods across the South, from Nashville to Knoxville to Memphis, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, Alabama, Atlanta. And then, one of the challenges, and I'll get into that more, was Amazon came up, and they kind of had a different model. And so, but it's kind of like been our formula since day one. We knocked on doors, gave samples, and just asked everyone for their honest opinions. And so now we've been doing it for 8 years, and up until this year, it's been all wholesale. And we work with some of the top chefs in the country, award-winning chefs, and it's been a great journey. And so what we try to do is different from other ice cream businesses or frozen dessert businesses is we use local ingredients. We use Brown Family Farm. We use blackberries, blueberries, sorghum, muscadines, if you guys are familiar with that. So that's what really sets us apart. The machines that we use, the techniques that we use. And we always, we do traditional Italian gelato, but a lot of times we try to put a little southern twist on it. Like we use pound cake from Miss Mary's. She's a local lady. We use honey from Mr. Powell. And it's also about relationships. It's always been about relationships for us in our business. I know when I go to see Mr. Powell and his wife, I have to sit down for at least an hour and talk with them and talk, about the family and the dogs, and but that's one of the things that we enjoy. It's about those real relationships, and so in 18 and 19 has been a challenge, and it's been a change. We actually moved from Clarksdale, where we started, and we moved to Oxford, Mississippi, which is an FDA-approved kitchen, and we also opened up our first retail location inside Pup Food Hall at 409 South Main. And so that's a new experience for us, and we look forward to it, and so far so good. We love downtown Memphis. Like I said, we got our first start in Memphis, and so I guess we're country cousins, so to speak. And so some of the places that you can find us, Char, Marigold, like my friend here said, Lucchese's, Sweetgrass, 117 Prime, 3rd and Court, A. Schwab, Whole Foods on Poplar, Felice Suzanne's, Grove Grill, Saltwater Crab, High Point Grocery, Curb Market, and forgive me for leaving anyone out. I don't want anybody to be mad. But my advice for folks, young folks coming up, this was a dream for me. I basically said, I created something from nothing. Here's this guy from, Washington D.C. moving to the Mississippi Delta. I was actually a home dad at one point, which was one of the most gratifying jobs I ever had, and so my wife and I, we traveled, and I just, it was just a dream, and it was just something that I enjoyed doing. I never gave up on it. My family wouldn't let me give up on it. It's definitely a family business. I have all my children. They're involved in the whole process. My youngest son, who loves Fortnite, I have him on a POS system, oftentimes. My oldest son, he's the cool one, so I have to get him to be a little bit more personable, So, and my daughter, she's a sweetheart. But find a niche market that you're passionate about. Do your research. Stay committed. Learn your craft. Always learn your craft. Hustle hard. Never give up. And use professional, reputable attorneys, CPAs. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Don't be afraid of failure. Learn how to establish and maintain good relationships is important. It's really important to us. And that's pretty much what we have to say.
So I'm just shocked to hear that Amazon wasn't helpful to a small business. It was like a news flash. We got to go breaking news with that, but we'll talk more about that when we get to the Q&A. Next up is Rebecca Dinstuhl from Dinstuhl's Fine Candy Company.
Well, good afternoon. It's really a challenge to stand before you trying to steer a company that's 117 years old, because today the business is changing so much. But I'm going to share with you just a little bit about what Dinstuhl's is all about and from whence we came. So if you'll bear with me just a moment, we'll get this going. We started in 1902 at 197 and a half Main Street. Well, everybody asks, well, where is that today? Well, that building doesn't exist today, but in about I guess 1914, they renumbered Main Street. So to give you the exact location, we think it's very close to the corner of Jefferson and Main, of what we know today. So this was a nice view of looking southbound on Main. But if you'll notice one small sign, not only the Dinstuhl sign, but if you see the Amuse sign, 5 cents, that is a very significant location because it was just a few doors down from the candy store. And Charles Martin Dinstuhl Sr., who was the founder of Dinstuhl's, actually founded the very first theater in Memphis, and that's where the theater was located. So he was kind of in the amusement business. He had the candy store, and it was also not only a candy store, it was an ice cream parlor, where one of the founding recipes of our chocolate fudge was used as the hot fudge topping. So one of my dreams is to one day maybe recreate that, and maybe we could use the gelato to do it. This is Charles Martin Sr. He was quite a cat about town from what we understand, and he loved Memphis. This is his son, who later came along in the business and was very instrumental. He's Charles Martin Jr. So as the business evolved and they began to grow, then all of a sudden, Charles Martin Jr. was sent to the bank to take the daily deposits. And just as he had handed it to the teller, the banks closed and failed due to the Depression. So all of the little entrepreneurial businesses that Charles Martin Sr. had failed, except for the candy business. It was the only one that survived the Depression. People say, why is that? Well, we can speculate and say partly because everybody had at least a penny in their pocket, even during the Depression. And they would come in and treat themselves with a little bit of joy with that penny and buy a piece of candy. So it did survive the Depression, and we're very grateful today. So as we venture on, this is next showing that when they moved after the Depression, they moved to a location on Madison Avenue. And there they sustained for quite a while. The company continued on and strengthened, and from there, here's another sign that you may or may not recognize, and we've pulled these from some of the great historical photos that we've been able to locate. Then Gene, the third generation, joined the company. And he was a young man, energetic and wanting to find his own way. So as Memphis was beginning to grow beyond the Parkway, and there was this new location way out east called Laurelwood. Well, the family thought that they were crazy, but Gene had married this lovely lady from Little Rock, Arkansas, Grace Dinstuhl, or Grace Young was her maiden name, and they decided, we need to move east. We need to open in this new center called Laurelwood. This was in 1962, and they were one of the founding stores that opened the Laurelwood Shopping Center in the very beginning. And I'm glad to say we're still there and strong today. We love being a part of the Laurelwood family. But this photo is actually the grand opening day for that location. Grace and Gene were so adamant that this was the future of the company that that Granddaddy Dinstuhl just wasn't that thrilled about it. So Grace and Gene decided, well, we're going to buy the company from you, and we're going to continue on in the future. So they did, and there Dinstuhl's began to grow outside the Parkway. This is a wonderful gentleman that has worked for Dinstuhl's. He began just before they moved to Laurelwood. His name is Tommy Washington. Tommy just retired a couple of years ago with 54 years of service making candies and chocolate. And Jennifer did a beautiful article on him just as he was retiring. We miss Tommy, but he served us well, and he deserves this time of retirement. And at Dinstuhl's, we still do things the old-fashioned way. Our chocolate fudge, as I mentioned, is our founding recipe, and it has been ranked, I'm very proud to say, as the #1 fudge in America. We think so. So we're very proud of some of the recognition. And in the South, many of you recognize that today we have air conditioning, and chocolate we can definitely deal with chocolate, because once chocolate gets above about 75 degrees, it's going to get a little soft. So traditionally in the South, you didn't make chocolates during the summer. So that's why we have our wonderful traditional Southern candies. And that was the mainstay of our business during the summer, because chocolate you just didn't work with. So pralines, wonderful divinity. This is something that came about in the 1950s, is our Cashew Crunch. Many of you know it today, and it's one of our best sellers today. Just a pure butter brittle made with cashews and brown sugar. And then this is one of our newer creations, our Heavenly Crunch. And then the turtlettes. So some of these things are pieces that you recognize and you find your own favorites among the over 200 different kinds of candy that we make today. Here we've been ranked as one of the top candy stores in the South. And Jennifer also mentioned one time in one of her articles, we are one of the very few candy companies that still hand dips and hand strings our chocolate. So if you'll notice, this happens to be a maple cream. And the way I know that is because there's an M on the top. That is made by someone touching the top of the chocolate and forming that letter M. So each piece of chocolate that you eat at Dinstuhl's has a symbol or a marking on the top that tells us what is on the inside. Many companies today are all mechanized, and there's the stringing, it's called chocolate stringing, is done by machines, but we still do it by hand, one piece at a time. And then today, in today's world, the chocolate fountains are popular for special events and fun occasions. And this happens to be Andrew showing a showcase of doing party events and things of that nature. Specialty products are things that we're known for, customizing things for companies, corporations. This actually is the old-fashioned fondant mint, and not many companies make this today. Because at Dinstuhl's, we still start with the raw ingredient of the sugar, in this case, peppermint, and primarily water. Those are your three ingredients for our fondant mint. But the way and the techniques that we use to make them today still make them delicious and melt in your mouth. We actually can symbolize these with shapes and colors as well as letters. These are more party favors, and as you can see, with Memphis and all the tourism going on in Memphis, it's another way that we've reached out and expanded our market, because people love things about Memphis. So if we can mold something about Memphis and chocolate, then it just makes it that much better. We also have been able to acquire a license with Elvis Presley Enterprises, so we actually can make Elvis chocolates. And this time of year is caramel apple season. So caramel apples are king during the fall. We end our strawberry season in the Labor Day, and we kick off with caramel apples. Halloween is around the corner, and that's another one of our big seasons. And then we roll into Thanksgiving, and we hand make our marzipan. If you've never had it, it's a hand-rolled almond paste, very decorative. Each piece is hand-painted, hand-rolled. And then there is Santa Claus. As you see, the tag on this, we were actually commissioned by Macy's to make these for their stores throughout the country. But with Macy's going through all of their challenges, we're not seeing as much revenue stream coming in from that particular source today. We're seeing our revenues generated through some of our smaller retailers than the larger ones, such as Kroger and Macy's. Again, you can see some of the things that we can do for corporate clients, and during the holiday seasons, the gift-giving time. It's a great way to promote your brand with a delicious handmade product right here in Memphis. During Valentine's, we've been noted by People magazine as one of the best gifts that you can give. And so one of our heart-shaped boxes is sure to please your sweetheart. So again, at Valentine, we kick off the strawberry season. And this last year, with the opening of our new Collierville store, we had a record-breaking sales of chocolate-covered strawberry, not only in production, but in our sales numbers. We produced in 3 days and sold over 7,000 pounds of strawberries. And that's quite a feat because each berry is handled about 6 times, from the cleaning process to dipping it into the sugar fondant, then enrobing in chocolate, packing it in boxes, packing it in cases, and distributing to the stores, all within by 10 o'clock in the morning. So our staff really did a great job, and they get up a little earlier those days. So here they are, the staff working on them. Then we roll right into Easter with the the eggs, the hand-packed Easter baskets. And then this is one of my favorite shots because we had the opportunity and were commissioned by the Super Bowl to make truffle pops to serve during the Super Bowl in Detroit several years ago. So that was a fun project and something we'd never done before, but they approached us and said, "Can you?" We said, "Absolutely, we can do it." Here's some of our staff, and that is sort of the backbone and foundation of our company. How do you grow a company? How do you sustain a company? Particularly one that's a food organization. First, you've got to make the very best product that you can possibly make. And at Dinstuhl's, I do believe that we do that. That is one thing that we stand on. It's the 3 cornerstones of our business, is the quality of our product. Second is the customer service that we offer our customers. When you walk into a Dinstuhl's, hopefully you are greeted with a smile and made to feel welcome because you're there hopefully to get a treat for yourself or buy a gift for someone. So we want it to be something that you enjoy coming in. It's got to be a great experience. And the third one is the quality of our employees and taking care of them. We are a large family. We're a family-owned business. And we're very fortunate that through the generations, and we're very proud now that Andrew is strong and working in the manufacturing and production process as the 5th generation. He's very proud to say that he makes candy the same way his great-great-grandfather did. And many times using the same equipment that his great-great-grandfather did. So we try to manage our expenses carefully. We want to make sure that our revenue streams are coming in from more than one area. That is critical because if you hit a downturn in the economy, if you only have one revenue stream, your company may not survive it. It just depends on how that works. But with Dinstuhl's, not only do we have our retail stores, but we sell through our corporate channels. We have wholesale accounts. We have our web-based business, as well as just word of mouth. But it is something that if one is slowing down or failing due to a softened economy, the other one typically will ramp up. Or there are ways that we can generate additional sales through other channels. We've tried everything from QVC to Kroger to Macy's, and we find that the tried and true day in, day out business is what has sustained us. I'm very excited to say that our business is on the upswing and it is growing. We are now 4 stores strong, and we added that Collierville store just right in at December last year. I was hoping to get it opened a little earlier than that, but due to construction, it took a little longer. But we're very proud of what we do, and we're glad to be serving the Memphis community. Our plans for growth for the future are we take it very slow and carefully. I explored franchising when I first rejoined the company 14 years ago. And the franchising just was not the model that I felt like that would sustain our company. Because you can go big and fast, but many times you fall quick and hard. So, and for our business, I think steady is the way, grow as we can, and hopefully we will be here for many generations to come. So after 117 years, the best is yet to come.
Craig is nervous. Craig Blondis from Central Barbecue.
How y'all doing? First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Barnes and the Daily Memphian for having me here today. Just so you know, I am not a public speaker, so I won't get that out right now. I'd like to start by just giving you a little background of who I am, where I came from, how Central Barbecue was formed. I graduated high school in 1980 from Wooddale High School here in Memphis. I attended the University of Tennessee for a couple of years, but college was not for me, so I dropped out. At that point in 1983, I started in the restaurant industry, bussing tables at TGI Fridays in Overton Square. Over the course of 19 years, I worked my way through the business, learning all aspects of it. And at the same time, I was competing on cooking teams at Memphis in May. So that gets a little background into how we started. My business partner, Roger Sapp, was on a separate team. We met through playing soccer, hanging out in bars and all that. So he approached me in 2002 and asked me if I wanted to go into business with him at that point. He had bought the property on Central, and at that time, I wasn't really sure what we wanted to do. I remember John Wills used to have his barbecue joint right down the street, do $1 million a year out of that location. I figured, well, what the heck, let's roll the dice, let's go for it. So we opened April 1st, 2002. I got married April 27th, 2002. So for the first couple of years, I didn't see my wife. I was working from 6 in the morning till 12 at night, 6 days a week. I would sleep in the bed of my truck between shifts. They'd wake me up, come on, it's getting busy, time to go back to work. So a lot of that in the early years was a struggle. I didn't pay myself sometimes because I had to pay my employees. Like you said about quality employees and relationships, this was everything that was so crucial to us. Starting off, the main focus was quality and consistency. No matter what in the industry, if you have those two things, people will come. It doesn't matter where you're located. I could have been in Fraser, people still would have come. We got the name for Central Barbecue mainly because we couldn't come up with a name. And it was on Central Avenue. My business partner wanted to name it after his son. I'm like, no, let's just do it. So the thought was Central Barbecue got its name because we wanted to make barbecue a central focus at the restaurant. There's different regions, different styles. We didn't want to alienate. We wanted to encompass all of it and make people welcome. For example, the different sauces we have in the dining room. Different regions, different sauces. So this way, no matter where guests came from, they would always feel at home. And that's a lot of what Central is about, is family and feeling at home. Our goal was to make everybody think they were in your backyard at a picnic or a barbecue cookout. The first 5 years was a struggle somewhat financially. Roger basically maxed out a gold Amex card, and that's how we started the business. You had Hurricane Elvis came through, put us out for 3 weeks. As most people know, cash flow businesses, if you don't have it coming in, you still got the bills going out. So we were very fortunate that our vendors were working with us at that time to recoup and get back into the swing of things. In 2007, we opened our second location on Summer Avenue. Excuse me. We originally were going to open the one downtown second, but this opportunity arose. It was too good to be true, I guess. We bought the property from Darden Industries, who is Red Lobster, so thus we named that location the Dead Lobster. So in doing so at that time, we took on a loan to buy the property. It was already equipped with everything minus a smoker, so it was pretty much a turnkey operation at that point. Biggest struggle I had at that point was I didn't want to leave the first location because that was the moneymaker to go open the second one. So I had a few struggles there because I wasn't there on a daily basis. I hired people that I thought would be able to handle what I needed done. In the long run, it didn't happen that way. It was a waste of about $150,000 in payroll that first year. But we recouped it. And then in, 2012, that brings us to the location downtown. My point that I'm trying to get at with this is slow and steady growth. Is to what you said, it's a safer approach to business than opening 20 units and they're gone. I mean, most franchises are that way. Summer Avenue was a different animal for us because it was a much larger space. How to get people into that space, how to utilize it. So then we turned one of the main dining areas into a banquet room, which a lot of barbecue restaurants have small spaces for meetings. So that was another area that we could recoup revenue. The challenges there, well, actually one of the best things that happened out of that was my business partner had left Wurzburg Corporation, where he had worked for 20, 30 years, straight out of college, went to work for them in the accounting department. He came on board full time and basically took over the responsibilities of the back of the house, which is not my expertise by any means. I am not an accountant. Money is, I like spending it and making it. But as far as managing it, managing the business, it was his expertise that helped us grow and then be able to open the third restaurant in 2012. So it's about every 5 years we've opened a restaurant. And once we opened the downtown location, we pretty much knew what we were doing at that point. It was much more comfortable for me opening that restaurant. I had quality people from the first two that I was able to move into position of management at the third location. To what you had said about family and treating people in the relationships, I have 2 or 3 former managers who have gone on to start their own business. I'm sure that everybody here knows who Mempops is. Both, both JC and CT worked for me downtown and helped me open that location. I'm proud of what they've done, the fact that I was able to help them get there. In 2017, thank you, you knew what I needed. Excuse me. In 2017, I was approached by Webb Wilson from the Kimmons Wilson Corporation about merging with them to get our name outside the Memphis area. So at that time, we merged. We've opened Poplar location. It's been a year now. It was on pace. It did $4 million its first year. We're about to open up Nashville, hopefully by the end of this month. And moving forward on that, it's not a franchise. It is a joint venture between us and them. Going forward, they purchased the intellectual property for our recipes, that type of stuff. So they control the growth. I retain a small percentage of it. We kept our stores here in Memphis as Central Barbecue, owned by Roger and myself, RSCB Holdings. So pretty much the growth is small. The fact that we maintained relationships with people, consistency and quality, allowed us to be one of the top 10 barbecue restaurants in America, not just Memphis. That piqued their interest, and it was able to join together and have funding to grow the business. My main focus going forward now is to maintain the integrity of the brand and the quality and consistency that has put us where we are today. Some of the, trials, tribulations, I think everybody in business has them. I mentioned Hurricane Elvis putting us down when we had a fire at Central right after we opened Summer. So it was, luckily we had a second location that drove business to there, which helped the growth of Summer. Downtown, everybody thought we were kind of crazy because of the location. At the time we opened, you had the Civil Rights Museum and nothing else down there at that time. You had a little bit on South Main, and now that's probably our best store. I don't know where we're going to go from here, how big we're going to get, but it's because we've been invested in the community, not just as a business, but giving back to the community. I think that's probably the most important thing for small business people to understand is the community is what gets you where you are, so take care of it. And it'll come back tenfold You know, our advertising when we first started was strictly guerrilla marketing, going out. I would do trade for like FM 100 would be at a car dealership. They'd call me up. You do the food for it, we'll mention you 5 times a day for a week. I had maybe $100 in it. You can't get radio advertising for $100. So I would say to anybody who's young and wants to get into business, you got to be dedicated. You have to have confidence in yourself more than anything that you can succeed. Like you said, failure, you can't be afraid of it. You know, my biggest goal was to be self-employed. I'm there, I'm successful. Commitment, goals, and staying true to the values of what you believe is how your business should be run. I treat everybody like their family. You know, even people that have left, I still treat them like family. I've had employees leave. I tell them, fine, you're not going to get a better job. But if you think you can, you go right ahead. 6 months later, guess who's back working for me? I have employees that started working for me in high school who are now running $4 million a year stores. So taking care of your employees is probably the most important thing aside from your pocketbook. I look forward to the future. I don't know how many units. Our growth plan is probably 2 a year for the next 10 years. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go and represent the city of Memphis going forward. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll do Q&A, but I'll start a couple questions. I think one of the big ones that I'm curious about, and you mentioned it to some degree, Rebecca did, maybe more than the others, but how much online retail, you know, I joked about Amazon not being the friend of small business, but just how, like, so I'll start with you, Hugh. Do you all do, how much online stuff do you do, and how do you see that growing? And, you know, it's interesting, you know, everyone thinks, oh, brick and mortar is closing and that's not going to happen, but you're in the midst of opening, you know, your first brick and mortar place. So how does online help you all, and how do you work in that space?
Well, in our particular instance at Dinstuhl's, online we feel like is more of an informational tool. It only generates 2% of our annual revenue. So in ways we've tried to grow it. One of our challenges is that our product is so perishable that it many times must be shipped overnight, and that's not an inexpensive venture. So we do use FedEx, and they do give us the best rates that they can. But until, you know, we cannot incorporate that particular cost within the cost of the product. So that we feel like hinders us to some extent. But it's still something that we feel like it's important to have a presence online. We're updating websites constantly. But we feel like a lot of it is people go there to find out what we have, information. Many times they'll pick up the phone and call us and order it.
Yeah. Hugh, for you all.
Yeah, pretty much the same for us. As you can imagine, it's expensive to ship gelato. So, yeah. So, and some businesses, they figured out how to do it. We're not at that point yet. But we basically use our social media and our website and everything to promote our business.
Yeah, and Natalie wanted me to say that your website is, quote, adorable. So those are, I just want to clarify, that is her word, not mine. I'm sure it is, but I'm a guy, I would never say that out loud. And Craig, how much retail stuff do you do? And
Retail, I would say less than 5%.
Yeah.
We're in Kroger's, but that's just the spices and rubs. We do ship through our website, which there again is not, but that's been an untapped area for us, and we're, with the merger with the Kimmons-Wilson family, we're working on becoming more of a presence in that area. You know, we don't really want to do QVC and follow in somebody else's footsteps that was from Memphis, but we are aggressively moving towards a larger presence in the online market.
A variation on that is, do y'all do Uber Eats, and what all is in Memphis now? Uber Eats and the other ones?
You got DoorDash, Uber Eats, there's about 6 or 8 of them. The problem with any of those is they basically want your profit. You do all the work, they take 30%.
So if it's a $10 order, Matt, they're gonna take, if I order $10 on Uber Eats from whatever
There
restaurant.
may be a minimum, and then they're gonna charge you, they're charging the restaurant, not the customer.
Right.
It's the same as like American Express. You pay a higher interest rate or a rate on it as a user because of the privilege of accepting their credit card. So it's similar to that.
Do you worry about those Uber Eats types places? I mean, that you're gonna get left out? I mean, I get why the math that makes.
I'm not worried about getting left out. What I'm worried about is them misrepresenting my product by going back during and calling and placing an order and then going and delivering it as DoorDash. And then when I get the phone call that the order is incorrect or that it was cold, wrong, or whatever, and they're wanting me to handle it. I said, I did not deliver food to you. We do not.
How often does that
deliver
happen?
I've actually filed complaints in San Francisco with DoorDash and 2 other of those companies, Grubhub, because they were doing that. They told me, you can't do anything about it. Basically, like it or leave it.
Alan might have some thoughts on that. Questions from the crowd, questions out here. We're gonna go eat sooner than later. I'm not gonna, we got a question up there, but with the food coming, but go ahead.
Well, I don't want to delay food.
No, go ahead though, go ahead.
You mentioned about how your people are so important. Any secret to finding the right people when you're hiring?
For me, it's been sort of word of mouth. You know, just that's been our secret right there. Just, you know, putting the word out there and finding. I might ask Jennifer. You know, like I have a position that's available, and that's the word of mouth has been best for us.
You can't hire Jennifer. You're not allowed to. How many employees do you have? I forgot. You may have mentioned at the top, and I've forgotten.
So we have one retail location that we just opened. So we started out as wholesale.
Okay.
So-
But overall, I mean, there's however many people work in the retail, and then on the back end.
Right now, it varies with, you know, seasonal, of course, like anywhere from 5 to 10.
Okay. And how many employees do you have?
We have just under 50 employees, and it is more challenging today, I think, to find the same caliber of worker than in the past, but they are out there. But what we're seeing is we used to have a lot of high school kids that worked after school and on weekends. Now we're seeing people who are retiring and coming back to work 2 or 3 days a week. And it's created kind of a whole shift in the age of our staff, but many times they're excited to be there and they're offering great customer service that our customers expect. So we're seeing a little bit of an evolution there, but this year has been a little more challenging than I've seen in the past, but I think we're beginning to make some inroads with shifting the age group. It's interesting, our Collierville location, we're having more applicants in the high school age bracket than before. The high school students are very busy today, and they really don't have time for afternoon jobs. But we're finding a way to make that, because we're committed to make sure we're hiring the right people. One of my philosophies is I interview every employee before they're hired.
Really? Wow.
I want them to hear our philosophy from me. I don't want it to be passed down in an employee handbook or just conveyed through a manager. I want them to know. They come into the Candy Kitchen, they see the work that goes into the product that we're sending to them to sell, and I want them to hear that their customer service is the most important thing they can do.
Yeah. Craig, roughly how many across the store? I mean, it's
Across the 4 stores, the catering kitchen, we probably employ over 200.
God.
To your question, you hire 10, you get 1. I mean, I hate to say it, but that is how it works. In the early years, it always used to just blow me away when you were handing out W-2s and I had a stack this big and I only had 40 people working for me. So turnover is hard. Quality people, once you get them you take care of them. You treat them with respect and like a family. Thus, I have people that have worked for me since they were 15, 16 years old, and they're still working for me because they get taken care of and treated like a human being and not just a number working for somebody.
Up there.
Really a Dinstuhl question. How many retail outlets do you have and how many kitchens do you have?
1 kitchen, 4 retail stores. But then we also sell to some gift shops in the region And so that helps us get our brand a little beyond our retail stores.
Again, we've got food upstairs, we've got wine, we've got drinks. We've got 2 seminars coming up, one in October, Developing Memphis, one in November, Commercial Real Estate. Please, I know might have questions for the guests or the speakers, but let them get upstairs and we can talk to them up there. Thank you all for being here, and thank you guys.